Good morning, good evening, good day. Hey, welcome to Keep the Change, everybody. Bart Dollenberger here, and I'm hanging out with someone who I just massively respect. A, someone who's been on the show a few times, and we've had just incredible conversations. And I walk away with notes on 3, 4 different pages of my notebook here. And I'm just so excited to be hanging out with Chris Saraceno today. Chris and I also, I think about a week ago, got to hang out in Atlanta in the lobby of the hotel after we did an interview on Adam Marburger's show. And as always, it's rich and he's a good man. And I'm sharing him again with you. So thanks, Chris Saraceno, for being on the Keep the Change podcast.
So my pleasure and my honor.
Chris, if you don't know this, you've been under a rock, but Chris is the vice president and partner of the Kelly Automotive Group. He's also the author of The Theory of Five, which is an incredible writing, and he's got 3 books that he's going to tell us about that are part of The Theory of Five, and he's got a new book coming up here soon called The Magic Stone. And Chris and I have a mutual mentor by the name of Eustace Wolfington, the founder of Half a Car, the executive producer of the movie Cabrini, as well as others, an incredible soul that he is. And I know Chris has had a lot of information that Eustace Wolfington has poured into him that he shares. And he's going to talk about this a little bit, but his number one key teacher in the book, The Magic Stone, is someone by the name of Wolfington, which is, to me, the ultimate respect. Mm-hmm. So, hey, let's rock and roll. Chris, welcome to Keep the Change. Tell us a little about what's going on in your life with all these projects you have going on.
Well, I also have the main project. We have 12 different franchises, automotive franchises, and 7 different locations. So lately I've been spending time at Kelly Ford, which is perfect because it's in Florida. And I moved here about 6 years ago to our Florida location where all my children and grandkids all live in Florida, in the Florida market. So I'm excited to be working here and spending some time at the Florida Kelly Ford.
Right on. It just seems right now, Chris, which is why I was so excited to get to hang with you some more. But it just seems that nowadays culture is the buzzword, right? During COVID, it was pivot, and leadership, of course, thanks to John Maxwell, has been a buzzword for 20 years. But tell me a little bit about, with all these businesses that you are overseeing and leading, tell me about what culture means to you.
Well, a culture all comes down to behaviors, because behaviors, once you have your behaviors, those determine your results in life. So if you create that culture and you surround yourself with people that have values that are in alignment with the way you think and the way you want to do business, it just makes business easier. And in life, as you know, sometimes when you have a company, you have 500 people, you take 2 or 3 steps forward, and sometimes you take 2 or 3 steps back, depending on the individuals that you have or the leader, because the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. So depending, you have all these different departments in a dealership. You have the sales department, you have the F&I department, you have the parts department, you have the fixed operations department, body shop, you could have a truck center. So you get leaders, and you always want to hire or promote from within, but sometimes that's not the case. And sometimes you have somebody that they're always at their best in most cases during the interview. Yes. And once in a while people sneak through, and then it's my job, and it's Greg Kelly's job, is to make sure that, hey, to listen to the team, and they feel comfortable enough to come to us and let us know, hey, you got the right person here, or based on results and based on what we're seeing, that it's not the right person. So it's never ending. And as I've said to many of our managers, I used to say, when they would say, Chris, I feel like we're doing the same thing over. How many times do I have to tell somebody this?
Yes.
And I remind them, listen, if it was that easy, all the Kelly family would have had to do is hire an accounting firm and a training company and a recruiting company. The reason we all have jobs is because leaders have to lead, and it never ends. Yeah. And you should just smile and look at yourself and say, you know what? There's always going to be a need for a leader. There's always going to be a need for a good leader and a good coach and a good manager, because it's a never ending task that it just keeps going. And, if you get to the point where, you have 50, 60% of your people that are self-sufficient, but you're always going to have to keep coaching, and things are always changing in our business and in business in general. So I look at it and say, if you're a leader and you ever say to yourself, how many times do I have to tell the same thing over and do it over? Remind yourself and say, you know what? Life is great. There's always going to be a need for good leaders.
That is so strong. And what I hear there too is that, I mean, that is a common comment by a lot of managers. And I think it differentiates a manager from a leader. Managers just manage. Leaders get, well, this is a moving target. Yeah. And leaders get communication is an important piece. And if we don't communicate well with Leroy, then the chances are he is going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know, one thing I really have been blown away with probably the last couple of years, studying different coaches, Valerie Burton, obviously John Maxwell, Marshall Goldsmith, you and I have talked about that, is how great coaches really understand they have to be curious going in rather than judgmental. And what I mean by that is, and I want your take on this, what I mean by that is so many managers think coaching is, come here, let me show you what we're going to do. And you and I talked about this before we went live. You're an ID on the DISC scale. D's like to direct. They like to, they're disciplined. They get things done. They like to have control, right? A lot of our managers are that. And when they direct, discipline, and control, what it means is the coachee isn't hearing the word they're saying, right? So I love what Zig Ziglar says. I said every week, you can get anything you want if you help them get what they want. And this is the greatest Eustace quote right here. The greatest. A man or woman convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So with all that, run with that and tell us about your communication style and how do we teach managers how to be leaders to install our culture and get them to buy in and get our people to buy in. Big question.
Well, we all have a certain way that we'd like to operate, but I really believe the key to being a great leader is to understand the team member that you're working with and be able to speak their language. And do they need more direction? Do they? You also have to understand what level they're at. Are they, highly competent and highly committed, and they don't need direction? They just need facilitation, and you want involvement because involvement equals buy-in. Or do they have high commitment but low competence? So it depends on where they at in the scale, and it depends on how they learn. I mean, I always look at it and say a leader's main goal is to help people reach their goal, but the goals have to be in alignment with the vision of the company or the organization that you're with. If their vision and your vision is in alignment and the culture's not even close to being each other, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to have some match of how you want to get business done. So that's understanding people, getting to know somebody, getting to know what works for you and what works for me may be completely different. What works, the way I would like to be spoken to and the way my spouse or your spouse would like to be spoken to may be completely different. Some people, I even know my daughters. I had one daughter that I would have to facilitate. And if I got a little frustrated, she literally would break out in hives when she was a young girl. My other daughter, if I wasn't blunt and to the point, she didn't listen. She didn't take me serious. So it's amazing that you could have children that, same parents, same genes, that you would think that they would be the same. But so if your children are not the same, what makes you think that you're going to have 10 team members, 100 team members, 1,000 team members, and they're all going to be the same? They're not. You got to look at everybody individually, and then you got to set guidelines out there, but you also got to make sure that you speak their language.
Yeah. One of my favorite Maxwell books, which I'm pouring into again, is The Self-Aware Leader. I love that.
Yes.
Because what I hear is that, man, there is no way if we're not self-aware, and I like saying paying attention. If you don't pay attention, you're never going to get paid. If we're not a self-aware leader and understanding ourselves, how in the world are we going to understand other people, right? And that's why I love. I'm from Toledo. I'm I try to keep it simple, but when I look at, that's why I love emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, understanding the room, emotional awareness, and relationship management, right? And so
I believe sometimes it's challenging to be self-aware if you're not approachable. Because what happens if you're not approachable, then people will not be comfortable sharing something with you or even challenging. Everybody thinks if you're challenged, that means that you're being disrespected. Well, you know what? Conflict is not always bad. Conflict could build chemistry. And if you truly care about somebody, there's nothing wrong with challenging somebody. But if they don't feel, because you have a title behind your name, that they can't approach you or ask a question or even challenging what you're saying, like I'm going to give a prime example. The other night, I had one of our managers. He started questioning me in front of a bunch of managers about a certain area, and he kept going on. In my mind, I thought he's really trying to understand, and he's passionate. And I looked at it as a plus that, that he was questioning me, and we didn't know each other that well, and some of the managers didn't know each other that well, because the main manager that I deal with wasn't there, and he was pretty new to the company. And about an hour or two later, I get a text message apologizing to me, saying, I'm really sorry that I challenged you. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. I immediately picked up the phone and said, no, I looked at this as if you were trying to learn and that you were passionate and that your challenge was you were seeking to understand, and you just kept asking more questions because you were like, how about this situation? How about this situation? Now he's a very passionate guy. I left feeling really good. Apparently what happened is the managers jumped around him and said, what are you doing? He's the vice president of the company, and they must have made him feel bad. So when he reached out to me, I quickly called him right away and said, I just want to let you know, I am happy that you did that, because I could tell by the end we both learned, and you had a better understanding of what we meant by this situation. So I would say to your audience that, feel very comfortable if you have somebody that's a leader, asking them questions, seeking to understand. You maybe give an overview up front. I'm asking these questions because I really want to understand what you mean by this, and I want to adapt to the company based on the culture of your company. But questions. I believe the best leaders have an innate curiosity to learn and understand how other people think and what their mindset is.
Yeah, man, I love that. Love that, because it's, again, going back to one of those words that are just so much a word of the 2020s, and that is coaching. Everybody thinks they know what a coach is. And Gallup, you and I have talked about this. Gallup says that coaching is number one. They got the book right here. And in the book, it's the manager. The number one thing of coaching is set expectations, right? And so they know. But I think there's another part to that, Chris, that Gallup doesn't bring up. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to challenge them. And that is, what's the expectations of the people on the other side, right? It's one thing to have them know my expectations. Hey, this is what I expect of you. But I want to know theirs. Because if I know theirs and I know ours, then I think a leader's responsibility is to make them dance together, right?
I agree 100%. In fact, you know what? I think one of the most important times to set the expectations on both sides and to ask questions is during the interview. And I find it in many industries, if you as a leader don't set the expectation, this is what we expect in this position. This is what the job's all about. Let me tell you what I'm like to work with. You should be very clear. This is what I'm like to work with. And here's how I am. And here's how I behave in these situations. And then you should it's up to the person interviewing that point to ask questions of the person that's hiring them.
Yes.
Okay. How do you handle this situation? What do you like best about the store? What do you like best about the company? Why are you here? What are your most challenging situations? So it should be a double interview. It shouldn't just be the owner or the manager of a company interviewing. The person that's interviewing for the job, they should have enough respect for themselves and say, you know what? I want to interview them to make sure it's a good fit for me. It's a responsibility on both sides to set those expectations.
You know what I hear there too is, what if we set the stage and said to the interviewee, hey, before you come, I want you to bring a list of 15 questions you want to ask me, right? That lets you know either they know how to use AI or they're creative enough to come to the table and know about whoever's interviewing them. I mean, nowadays we can find out anything about anybody. So I'm looking up this book. I'm going to look it up here. It's one of my books that I just got. And this guy's a trial attorney. The name of the book is The Next Conversation by a guy named Jefferson Fisher. And what he talks about is it's never in conversations about winning. Never win an argument. Your next conversation, say it with control yourself. I mean, this is a really good book, but here's one thing he says, Chris, that you've got to, and you know this, but you've got to talk to some, they have 3 different personalities. The first time you talk to them, the second time you talk to them, and the third time you talk to them, right? Yeah. People start revealing themselves that third time, don't they?
And there's sometimes you look at it and go, aha, that person's not going to work. Or you go, well, you know what? I really like this person. And that's what I said. The more you talk, take hiring, recruiting, take it serious, because people are the most precious commodity in any business that you have.
Yeah.
And if you don't surround yourself with the right people, and that was one of the benefits that you had being with Half a Car, is the people that they hired. They did such a great job. And I think the whole Wolfington family did that, hiring the right people and making sure they brought the right people and surrounding themselves with good people in a company that had the same vision.
That's so true. And they had 150 of us out there in the universe going and talking about trade cycles. And they did, man, they had a incredible hiring process where they would take months to hire somebody.
Yes.
I got in a lot quicker because they were probably more of a need at that point. Yeah. But you remember Peg O'Neill, Eustace Wolfington's sister. She was a former nun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a high D personality and talk about asking great questions.
Well, think of when you're with being with the right company, the right leaders changes someone's life. Your life has been changed because of working with that company. My life was changed just being associated with the people within that company and getting to know them and having them on the advisory board and board of directors for our company. So choose the company you're going to be with wisely, because it's a life changer, either in a good way or a bad way. And have enough, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, listen, I only have one life. And we've already won the lottery of life, the fact that we were born. Yeah. Choose those people wisely that you're going to be around. Choose the company. Choose the leaders wisely. Make sure you get around the right people, because just like you and I, it changes our life with the right people that we've had around us.
Yes, and it changes my life from hanging out with you because you're so wise. And you know what? You come from this really authentic spirit. Even though you've got so much responsibility, you walk in the room with class. But you don't walk in the room like, oh, he's full of ego and pride. Never see that in you. I see a servant leader, somebody who's passionate about serving your people. Tell me about who Eustace had impact on you. And let's talk about that, please. I know other people did as well. I know within your current organization. But tell me about some of those leaders that had the most influence on you. And I will start with, I worked under Eustace, but I didn't get to hang out with him, right? I mean, I would sit at his desk, but I didn't have these kinds of conversations. And then one day we were at a family meeting, and after, I think it was 20 years later, and we were at the Orlando World Center Marriott. And I said to him, I said, will you, and we were at the Orlando World Center Marriott, and I said, can I interview you for a podcast? Chris, I'd never done a podcast before. And I just wanted to interview. I just wanted to hang with them with nobody else around. And I still have that interview. It was so rich for me. It was so powerful. And I was so grateful. And he's since been on this show like 3 times. And I've had a connection with him that I could never have if I was at a distance. But tell us about the impact he had and why, and how that's led you today, how it's influenced you to lead other people today.
Well, from my first meeting with him was in 1997, and it was really Mr. Kelly who had a tremendous influence with me at the time. And I was just promoted to the vice president of the company. He said, what do you think about leasing? And I remember I was very negative on it. And he goes, okay. He goes, listen, I got a gentleman I want you to meet. It's a company called Half a Car. Go down to, where was it? King of Prussia or Philadelphia area?
Linwood.
Lynn, yeah. So I drove down there, and I remember them having welcomed Chris Saraceno. I remember being like impressed, and I think I met Peg right away,
Yes.
O'Neill, and then I met Mr. Wolfington, and it was really just the way he made me feel, and talk about authentic. I could tell just from meeting him, the interest he showed in me, and rather than push a trade cycle on me, he just asked questions.
Yes.
And asked me what was important and the philosophy. And what happened is at the end, I left going, wow, I didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. But he opened up the door, opened my mind up by wanting to listen to him. Yes. So I think just by the way he handled himself in the questions and, not being pushy and just sharing his point of view on it. And he made one comment. I remember him saying, listen, the goal when you have a dealership is to deliver vehicles and not to play God. And your job is to present options. And when you present two different ways of getting a vehicle, or buy or a trade cycle, people's minds move so quickly. I remember talking about the human mind being the greatest computer in the world.
Yes.
He said, what happens is when you give somebody just a buy, they will say to buy or not to buy, to buy or not to buy. Their mind just goes like that. He goes, when you give a trade cycle, what will happen? You get 10% more people that will say, ooh, do I do a buy or do I do a trade cycle? Do I do a buy or do I do a trade cycle? Thus, you will deliver more vehicles. And he goes, isn't that your job? That if you really believe that you're a great company and you're going to take care of people, to deliver more vehicles, knowing that you will take better care of them than the dealership down the street. And I remember leaving going, yes, he's right. Yeah. Sharing options and not playing God and telling them how they're going to get the car, and sharing these are different ways of you getting this car make a complete difference. But not only that, you know what else? What is he, 93 years old now? 94?
Oh, man, he's got to be 94 now.
Now, I have a picture with him from a year and a half ago. I don't know if he shrank much at all in that age group, but I will tell you that his physical fitness, years ago, he said to me, Chris, I do an hour and a half. I spend half hour stretching, half hour cardio, half hour light weights. And then he also works his mind every day, and he still works every day. It actually has changed my whole point of view already of saying, wait a second, Chris, you're in your mid 60s. You got a long way to go. Look at who do you want to be like when you're in, if God willing that you live to 90 years old? Do you want to be like Mr. Wolfington, where you're walking straight and going to work every day and enjoying life? Or you want to be some old man that just retires in his mid 60s and you don't know what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years? I looked at his life and how much he enjoyed it and say, that's the life I want.
Yes.
I want that life. Yeah. Because of his brain, because of the way he takes care, the way he walks, the way he talks, changed the way I sort of looked at even life as far as work life.
Yeah. And, you come with that presence too, man. You walk straight, you're confident. And it's funny, as we're sitting here in this chair that I'm interviewing in, I'm kind of leaning back. And then you mentioned Jay's posture. And I'm thinking, man, I need to keep my back straight, because this guy, yeah, you're right. I think he's still the same size, and probably has to do with stretching.
Yes.
Right. And I wrote it down. Every time I hang out with you, man, there's something. Okay, I'm going to do that. I got to get my stretch.
Like a young man. He walks better than 30-year-old men.
Yeah.
His walk is, it's the way he thinks and everything he's done about his life that all of a sudden you go, yeah, I want to be like that.
Yes. Well, you mentioned a couple of his leadership philosophies. Do you remember anything specific that you've just mentioned it generally? Do you remember some specific parts? You mentioned that mind is like a computer. You mentioned that options rather than obligations. If you didn't say that, that's what you said.
Well, he used to say, think like a customer. Remember that?
Yep.
Think like a customer.
Yeah.
Don't think like you're running a business. How does the customer think?
Yes.
Think everything from their perspective. And remember, he used to say, from the wings of an angel.
Yes.
You're above. From the wings of an angel, you look down at your business. And you look down at your life, and you look down at how you run your family. I have all that. Just look at it from the wings of an angel.
Yes. Yeah.
Little things like that you would say, you go, wait a second. I'm not looking at it that way. That's a great way to look at life.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously had a huge influence on you. So when you look at, you mentioned JE, who are other leaders that have had such an impact on you, on your journey here? In terms of shape, you might not want to disclose your age, but you look 15 years younger than you are because of your fitness, because of your mental health. Um, that obviously has had a huge impact on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you work out daily, right?
I do.
And you got that probably from growing up influencers, but also from JE, as you mentioned. But who else has had an influence on you and your leadership style and the journey that you're on?
Well, I wrestled from second grade up through my first year in college. So I would say my wrestling coach, my first wrestling coach, changed my life. And he's the one that I think I was in second grade when he used to always go, iron sharpens iron. Chris, iron
Mm,
sharpens iron. You need to find the best people to work out with. But that I didn't realize that at that age it was from the Bible. But that's so true in every area of life. Being that it's sports, being that it's business, being a good father, a good husband, a good friend. All that is, you look at the people that are doing a great job that you say, I like that and I admire that about that person. And that's why I mentioned the word having an innate curiosity. When you see somebody that's really good in a certain area, being that it's as a husband or a father or a business person, what's the worst could happen if you walk up to them and say, I really admire who you are and how you
yeah,
behave.
yeah,
Tell me a little bit of the way you think and how you became this way.
yes,
You will be amazed how many people are honored. But if you don't ask, you will never find out.
yeah,
And most people want to share what they've done and help and support other people in that area of life. If they know they're a good husband, they probably have worked very hard at being a good husband or a good father, or a good mother, whatever. But I would say the challenge to people that are watching this, think about who you admire most in
mhm,
certain areas of your life, being it's health or fitness or business, and reach out to them,
mm,
knowing that what's the worst that can happen is they say no. And what's the best that can happen is you have a new friend and you have a mentor or that lifeline to reach out to and talk to them when you have a situation that you want counsel on.
mm. So good, so good. You are an author, you're a speaker, you run a number of businesses, you have an incredible family. People looking at you can look and say, man, I want to be like that. And I congratulate you on that. But let's go to that author piece. And one thing about Chris, I mean, you know this. I think you know this about me. I've been given a gift, and the gift is when I catch somebody doing something right, like you just said. I don't have all that many gifts, but I do have that, man. I love catching people doing something right authentically, right? If I say it, I mean it. And so thank you for allowing me to do that. Thanks for bringing that up, because I feel that is definitely one of the things that that has worked for me. And I love catching, I think, who was it? The 1 Minute Manager author, and his name's skipping me right now, but he said, catch people doing something right. We always have those bad bosses that don't do that, right? But that's what I heard you say, and I think I've learned how to do that. Let's talk about 30 of 5 though, because
Well, can I add on to that? Because I believe what happens when you catch people doing something right, because what gets recognized and rewarded does get repeated. And if you really want somebody to repeat those behaviors, you catch them doing something right and be very specific of what you think they're doing when you're recognizing them. They will repeat that. That's just human nature. We're all, I don't care if you're 5 or 50. We're still little kids in our mind that like to be recognized and catching someone something right. So I would tell you that my point of view is, I think every individual watching this, everybody has a gift from God that you may not know what it is, but you have to search from that. And when you just said what your gift was. When you know what it is, you got to really look at it and say, no, I know I'm good at this, and keep growing it. But
yeah,
we all have that gift.
yeah.
You just have to find what it is for you.
And everybody has one, right? You're so right. And I think the problem is, I went to Zambia 2 weeks ago, as you know, and I got to preach twice at church on Sunday, as well as speaking to 22 different groups throughout the week. It was phenomenal. But I talked about on Sunday, the lie, the truth, and the new life. And the lie is the lies that you and I have, any human, not just you and I, but any human tends to go on. Maybe somebody told us we weren't good enough. Maybe somebody told us we'll never be able to do that. And somehow we took that as the real deal. But when I look at people that have succeeded, they didn't believe that noise. They didn't buy into the lie. They believed in the truth that they were going to succeed. Nobody gets where you are or where anybody else is at a high level, or JE is, or anyone else we've talked about, without knowing the truth. And the truth is the belief system. You mentioned it when we first started, the belief system that's going on between those 6 inches that results in results. Yeah. And that's the new life, that you and I can have this incredible life if we just blow up the lie, live in the truth, and you're an example of it. So talk to us about that, a segue into Theory of Five, and how the Theory of Five really has affected the managers that work for you to have them buy in to be better leaders.
Well, the Theory of Five book is something I worked on for years, but it's really focused on surrounding yourself with the right people in the 5 areas of life that I believe, based on my research, is where the happiest and most prosperous people are. And that's, really understanding and believing and having spiritual, knowing that you're not the center of the world, that there's something greater than you out there. So you have to, the happiest people I know and most prosperous are spiritual. 2, choosing your life's partner. The partner you choose in life, that could make or break you. And I've seen people that I thought were going to be rock stars, and guess what? They got the wrong person. I've seen people I thought were going nowhere, and I saw people that were going to be great that became greater because they have a great partner. A parent, aunts, uncles. If you have children that you love and they can't survive and thrive on their own as they become adults, it's tough to really be happy and prosperous if they can't make it on their own. Because as a parent or aunt or uncle, if you love them, to see people suffering because they can't deal with it, handle things on their own, is very challenging. Business and finance, we have to understand how to manage money, because managing money allows us to give back to society and donate to the places we want, to take care of the people that we love. And last but not least is what we talked about, is health and fitness. If you're not taking care of your body, it's the only body we're ever going to have. So it's almost like if someone said to you, hey, I'm going to give you any car you want at 16 years old. But guess what? It's the only car you're going to have the rest of your life. You would take care of that car so well. You only have one body, so take care of that body the same way. As if it's the only body you're ever going to have, we got to take care of it. So the Theory of Five was really brought because of that. And I had somebody years ago, when I was in my early 20s, actually came up with the name, and he called it a Theory of Five. And years later, when I brought it up to him and told him I was writing a book, he goes, I don't even remember saying that to you. And I'm like, that's where I got the name Theory of Five, because you told me about the Theory of Five. And he goes, it must have just been in a conversation that I said. But that's why you have to remember, people watching this, is that sometimes there's little things you say that you don't realize impact people. Here's a gentleman, his name was Robert Parr, that when I was 23, used that term about surrounding yourself with the right people in these 5 areas. And years later, when I was writing the book, he didn't even remember saying it to me. It stood out to me, but to him, he had no memory of even coming up with that concept or saying it to me.
That's so good. So Theory of Five has expanded since you and I talked. Talk about that.
Yes, I have a workbook right now, which the people that have read the book and used the workbook at the same time have given rave reviews and said, Chris, it is so much more meaningful when you're reading and then actually holding yourself accountable for specific behaviors and actions that you're going to do in each area. And then on top of that, I have the daily planner, which is throughout the year, every single day, it gives you an action or behaviors to think about. And now I have the Spanish version that I just put out only a week or 2 ago. That just came out, so the Spanish version. And then I told you about the children's book.
Yes.
It's going to be a Theory of Five fable. And the main character, as you mentioned, is a gentleman by the name of Wolfington that I'm going to talk about. So that will be out probably before the end of the year. It will be out. I'm working with artists right now to develop it, but it's more children focusing on asking the right questions. And I call them positive presupposed questions that only get you to think the right way and what you can do in life versus what you can't do in life. So it's going to be a fable about that. But my goal for that is that as a parent or grandparent, that you're going to sit down with your children and you can remember them, that you can remind them about the story of the magic stone. And are they asking quality questions that lead them to good behaviors? Or are they asking questions that focus on what they can't do in life?
That's so good. You're such a motivator to me, and I'm getting ready for my second book. And I'm also, Frank Marr is a mutual friend of ours.
Yes.
We just adore him.
Frank. Yeah.
Yes. And tell us this. I'm going to make sure I send this to Frank as soon as we're done here. But take a little shout out to Frank Marr, Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, listen, we both are involved in his charity. Frank and I have known each other for years, and unfortunately, we both have had tragedies in our life where we have had family members. In my case, a son and a nephew, and he had his grandson pass. Through similar situations. That now he has the charity Jake's Reach,
Yes.
which you and I are very much supportive of.
Yes, yeah, incredible soul. He was a mutual. We called him catalysts. We weren't trainers with half a car. We were catalysts, and because Eustace would say we're change agents, which is still locked in today. That's who I am. I'm a change agent who helps people reach their max capacity. Period. If anybody asks me in an airplane or on an elevator, that's it. Got that part of that from Eustace. But Frank had so much of an influence in my life, an incredible soul. And what he's doing, he's been one of the best trainers, catalysts in the world, and built such great relationships like he's done with you. But when his grandson died, he flipped from really not having a purpose, because he was traveling and he was training, so he had a purpose, a wonderful life. He's got a wonderful marriage to his wife Kathy. But what he did was he went all in. Yeah. And for those of you, and I'm sure Frank would like this, that I'm sharing this, his grandson OD'd. And he ended up going to his grandson's AA meetings and sat in every one of the meetings that his grandson went to. Even though his grandson was in heaven, he went to every one of the meetings, built relationships with these people that were in the meetings. Frank didn't have a drinking problem. He just wanted to find out what his grandson knew, and he took that information, became a leader in that community, became a servant in that community, set up Jake's Reach, which is a golf tournament and a foundation. And he's just an incredible soul. And I think there's a message for everybody there. Find the purpose, right? Got to have that purpose. Doesn't matter what age you are. I know Eustace Wolfington has a purpose. It's different today than it was 20 years ago. I know Bart Nolenberger has a purpose. And I get up at 5 because I have a purpose. Chris has a purpose. We have to find our purpose. And Frank is a great example of doing that in his next season. So shout out, Frank.
Frank is definitely a guy that also, all these people that you mentioned, they're people that make you want to be a better version of yourself.
Amen.
That challenge you challenge your thinking. That then when you have that stinking thinking, you might say to yourself, what would Frank say if he saw, if I actually did what I was thinking? What would Mr. Wolfing, what would my children, what would my grandchildren? So there's nothing wrong within the back of your mind, because we all have that stinking thinking once in a while where you're thinking of saying or doing something that isn't good, that you just remind yourself. I know that's how I am. I look at it and say, well, if my grandchildren or Mr. Wolfington or Mr. Kelly, if they saw, or if I behaved the way I'm thinking right now, how would they view me as a person? And I don't want to disappoint people, but you also want to make sure you're not a person that gets pushed around.
Yes.
But speaking your mind, being transparent, setting expectations, all the things that's what the best leaders do, and they're challenging themselves constantly.
Yeah, I with a client, I did a 20-week study for for 2 of his dealerships on the book Winning by Jack Welch. We're just now finishing it. And number 1 is mission and values. Number 2 is candor. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I mean, there's so many of us. That's a whole new podcast for you and me. And I hope that we can do this within a couple months, because I want to ask you so much more about those types of questions. But the thing that I find, some people come with candor and it's like a storm, right? They say something like that's just, it could be taken wrong and their tone's wrong. But when I think of candor, I think you've got to have compassion. Mm-hmm. Candor with compassion. That's good communication. And so, but through this, it was a great study to really learn how to really operate a business. And for anybody interested in how that might look for their business, my number, reach out, because that book, my client told me about it. And that book actually has changed me so much. I didn't even know anything about it. I know everything about Maxwell's content, but I hadn't done Jack Welch's book, and it's old and he's passed. But the content is so powerful, especially on mission and values. I want to say, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but man, it just triggered me that.
But when you say candor, you mean being blunt, transparent, not having
authentic. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
But I would say that you just mentioned, you could be blunt and transparent with it. Your body language and tone are important when you do that. Yes. As you're going through it. And what I love about working with some people is that when you don't have to guess what they're thinking, it just makes life easier.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to look at it and say, well, if as you get to know people better, some people, their tone and voice may not be there, but you have to realize, okay, that's who they are, but they have good intentions. Yeah. So I think sometimes people get so sensitive. And there's just some people that are Eagles or high Ds that are just so blunt that you have to sometimes, behind the message, forget the words. I mean, the tone and the body language, and say, what was their intent? Yeah. And if their intent was to support your growth, listen to that message rather than how their body language or tone was at the time. Some people are just passionate. They just get that way.
Yes. You mentioned a guy earlier before we hit the record button, passionate guy.
Yes.
And to other people that might have been misconstrued. To you, it wasn't. You loved his passion. You loved his curiosity. Yep. And again, I think that leaders need to be about we and not me. And I think what happens when I was, not a leader, I always was worried about my image and how people looked at me. Now I don't care. Now it's how can I serve we, right? And great leaders do that. They're looking around and saying, how can I serve these people? How can I make them better? How can I help them grow? And obviously, communication in our world, we've got so many ways to communicate. We do it. A lot of people don't do it very well because they're in fear of having difficult conversations. So, yeah, I mean, it's a topic for a whole podcast.
Well, I would say that a difficult conversation is needed. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you, and if you allow somebody to do something is not going to support their personal growth, you owe it to that person. So if you really care about that person, you owe it to them to be blunt and have candor with them, because you want them to grow.
Yeah,
that's an obligation you have as a leader.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I think it goes back to say what you mean, don't say it mean, right? And it goes back to another thing we're going to do for this dealer group is a 2-day workshop, Chris, on communication based around some of the content comes from Crucial Conversations book, and we're taking all their employees through this 2-day workshop. And we're going to do it in 2 separate sessions. So everybody learns how to have those difficult conversations and do it with compassion and pay attention to the people on the other side. So if we can learn to communicate better, you talk about culture. Now we've got an organization that cares about each other, but can have those difficult conversations. And like you said, when we first started, knows how to ask questions instead of just coming in the room and directing the conversation. Direct it with questions. I think it's such a big piece. And you know what's so interesting? You and I, before we got on, I said, "Hey, do you want some question starters?" And you said, "No, I'm better off if we just go off the cuff." And we've done that today. We've kind of gone to a couple different topics. But I have to tell you, I made a whole list of questions. I've gotten to none of them. And that's what makes this work, right? We've kind of gone over the map, but it's fun just talking about so many different conversations and seeing where the flow goes, right? It's cool. Awesome. So what's next for you, Chris? You mentioned, I know the children's book is one that as soon as that's out, I'm getting it. But when you look at you're a grandfather, you're a father, you've got these businesses, some people look at a different journey. You've integrated different journeys within your current organization, which is great that you're able to do that. But what's next to you for you as a leader and as a man and a father and a grandfather?
Well, I'm happy with my life. I shouldn't say I'm satisfied. I would say, but the line that I've stated is that you want to be happy with your life, but never completely satisfied.
Love that,
because you want to keep pushing.
Yes.
Because part of what pushes me is my children and grandchildren and my wife. I want to be somebody that they're proud of and become the best version of myself. It's also fun. I mean, I'm in an organization where we have close to 500 people, and you have direct impact on that organization. I know I've had some people challenge me and say, "Chris, you're trying to change the auto industry." And I said, "Well, not really. I'm just trying to make the Kelly Automotive Group the best version of itself. And by the way, if I could support other people in our industry, that's great, because it's been a wonderful industry for me. It has been a life changer for me. I started this right out of college. I have now, on July 5th, it was my 42nd year in the automotive industry.
Congratulations.
And it's been, and if I would go back in time when I first started and somebody would show me, here's where you are today, I wouldn't believe it. It's been a life changer, but it's been a life changer because of the people I got to meet and the people that have supported me from day one. I had a Miss Harvey Ritter, the first dealer. Then I had Mr. Kelly, then the Kelly family and the Wolfingtons. I got to meet the Frank Mars, and I just got to meet so many wonderful people that have for some reason taken an interest in me and have been comfortable enough to challenge me and change the way I think about life and what could be. So I would say to the people that are watching this, you never know who you're going to meet that's going to change your life or where your life will be. And that when you look back 10 years from now, 30 years from now, that all of a sudden you go, wow, I can't believe where my life went. And the best part about today's world is you may not even have to go talk to somebody. You might be watching a podcast like today and get to know somebody on a podcast that all of a sudden they're changing your life, because it's easier today than ever before.
Yes. I heard something the other day by one of my friends, Tyler, and Tyler was talking about two words that really are really important to him in his day-to-day. He was talking about prospecting, and he said there's two pieces to this. Number one, does it impact other people's lives, and does it lead to income? And I thought, wow, that is so powerful. He said, if it's just income and there's no impact, is that really what we're on this planet for? If it's just impact and it doesn't pay the bills, how long can we do it? Yeah. I went to Africa and I asked the pastor, who gets a lot of his funding from the USA, I said, how do you do it? And he does other people's money, and he's great at that. There's nothing wrong with that. And the reason he gets other people's money is because his church has such an impact. He's changing lives. He's got 8 or 10 campuses in Zambia because other people believe in the impact he's having. And even though he can't raise that income, he's got people that believe in him that are doing it, right? And yet, I don't know about you, but I can't operate that way. I mean, I love to have impact, but I got to have some income coming in too. And I believe those two things just dance together very well.
Yes, because when you have when you have income, you could also impact people and support the charities you want and help out. We should talk about, how we support Jake's Reach. You can't support people and donations if you don't have the income.
Yes. Yeah. So true. So that's what we get to do today. People heard this today. They understand how you have such an impact and how you operate businesses that are super successful, that change communities because of the income they generate and the impact they have. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for honoring me with your time. There's one thing I want to point out before I leave. One thing you talked about in the theory of 5 was that right partner. I know you have mentioned many times your incredible wife, and I'm going to shout out to mine too. She's a partner in our ministry. She's a partner in my life. She's my best friend. She is the one who she listens to the podcast first every time. She's always giving me good feedback. And I just want to tell you that she's one of those that when you talk about people are better because of who they're with, there is no doubt about it. You know, that phrase from Tom Hanks' movie, "She completes me," might not be quite right. Jesus completes me, but she is my partner. And I'm just so unbelievably blessed, as you are, Chris, to have a partner like that. Right. So I'll let you shout out to your wife.
Yes, I would say the question you have to ask yourself, because listen, no matter who you're married to, there's going to be times where there is some conflict. The question you have to ask yourself is, am I better?
Oh yeah.
Am I a better version? Do I want to be a better person because of this person?
Yeah.
And if that individual makes you want to become a better person,
yeah,
wants to make you become a better version of yourself, because you want to make that person proud, and whatever works for you. I mean, if that's what works for me. I like that. I call it positive pressure to perform. I like positive pressure to perform on myself, knowing that there's other people that if they were watching me, she's definitely somebody I look at it and say, now, if she was watching me, how would I behave? Am I a better version? And do I push more because of her? Yes, I do. I do that. And that's, you have to find out what's important in your life when you choose that partner in life.
Yeah. Amen. So well said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How do people get a hold of Chris Saraceno?
Well, you get a hold of me on Facebook under Chris Saraceno. It's also on LinkedIn. I have lots of connections there. It's under Chris Saraceno. It's Saraceno. My website, thetheoryoffive.com. And on thetheoryoffive.com, that's where the books are. That's where there's a growth series on there that you can listen to about the 5 areas of the Theory of 5. So that's a way, but all the social medias I'm on, and I would like you, please go to theoryoffive.com and take a look at the website.
Yes, do that and grab the book. And again, let us know. You'll be back right before that new book launches on the podcast. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Rock and roll. All right, Chris, thank you for being such a great person and a great leader and a great mentor. I appreciate you so much. Appreciate the time. Hey, go ahead, share this, everybody. Go ahead and subscribe to Keep the Change. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.